Raising teenagers is hard. Understatement of the century. This is Mentor Select. Mentor Select. Parenting teens to be successful adults. Mentor Select serves parents who are raising teens. Every week, Derek interviews leading experts that work with teens, educators, counselors, mentors, and authors to give you practical tips, strategies, and resources that you can incorporate immediately to better connect and understand your teen. All while parenting them to be successful adults, focusing on social and emotional development, something that's left out of the classroom, but not in ours. Be sure to subscribe, share, and rate. This is Mentor Select, and this is your host, Derek Phillips.
Parents, you are in for a great treat today. My guest is Jeremy Mentz, who is the founder of ListenBetterNow.com. How are you, Jeremy?
Man, I am doing awesome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Can't complain. It's not so hot in Texas now, getting into the fall. So this is kind of my favorite time of year, the fall and spring, where it's not too hot.
That's the best.
How are you?
I'm doing really well, man. It's a beautiful day. It's right about 70 degrees here in Indianapolis. It's been just beautiful. I love fall like you. I love fall and spring. Their times have changed, and looking forward to the next season and a celebration of where we come from.
Indeed. And as we were talking about earlier, we're both from Indiana, so it's a small world.
That's right, small world. Crossroads of America.
The Hoosier state.
That's right.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, Jeremy, you know my audience is parents who are raising teenagers, so I invite people like yourself, those subject matter experts who work with youth and teens on a regular basis, and just kind of pick your brain on strategies, tips, and resources that you can share with the parents. I guess the best place to start is tell us more about ListenBetterNow.com.
Yeah, it's basically it started off as a side project that ended up turning into something totally unexpected. I've been married for about 12 years. I don't have teenage kids, but I remember being a teenager, and my parents definitely had teenage kids. And
come from a big family?
There are four of us.
Okay.
There are three boys and a girl. I'm the oldest. So my younger brother's 2.5 years younger, and then I have a younger brother that's 7 years younger, and then there's a big age gap between me and my sisters, 13 years.
Ah, gotcha.
And so we had a baby sister. She was an unexpected gift later in life so for my parents, and for me, I was in middle school right when she was being born. So
wow.
It's just wild to see. It was a very different relationship that I had with my brothers than I did with my sister.
Right.
Just being at different ages. But yeah, it's family life is something that I think is both challenging and probably the biggest blessing in people's lives when it's working great.
Yeah,
when it's not working great, it's it's also probably a source of maybe some of those late nights where you're just scratching your head wondering what in the world is going on. Up at night. So yeah, I started this largely as a result of wanting to figure out why some relationships work exceptionally well and some relationships struggle and they chug along. Just kind of, either not working for both people or not working for one person, or what's the difference? Why is there a difference? And is it something that it just happens, or is it something that can be affected and changed and thought about and acted upon?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So as far as relationships, you focus more on relationships within families or just relationships in general?
We look at primarily families because a lot of times that's where relationships start, and where relationships there's a lot of satisfaction and peace in. When you have a family that's working well, this is probably the most enriching part of anybody's existence in life. And so we talk a lot about, we work with husbands and wives and dads and moms and kids. And we talk about, creating a family that thrives together instead of a family that's just kind of surviving.
Right.
That said, the principles and the things that we talk about extend well beyond, your immediate family. It extends into your friendships. It extends into your workplace. It extends into any type of relationship that you have in your life, because largely what we talk about is becoming the kind of person that you need to become in order to have the kind of relationships that you want to have.
Okay. It starts with you. Starts with the individual. Yeah.
It really does.
I totally agree. And do you find is that sometimes a shocker for parents or a reality check?
The reality check is in my own life all the time. It's like, it's how many times do I want to blame somebody else for saying something, or how many times, did my kids get under my nerves?
Right.
Because they won't listen to me, or my wife, my partner won't do this. And so because she's not doing that, then I feel real frustrated inside. And so I regularly find myself thinking those thoughts, and I have to keep coming back to some of the mindsets that we teach and some of the mindsets that I practice, because they really do make a difference. And if I'm willing to take responsibility for myself, that's enough to change anything and everything that needs to change in order for me to get to where it is that I want to go.
Wow. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Now, I guess what are some of the things that you identified, some common denominators of families that thrive well, that are thriving?
That was the place that we started, is, what families could we look at that are doing really, really well, and what's going on in their family. Like I watch them from the outside, from an outside perspective looking in. They're going on these vacations, or they, you catch them as they're in line picking their kids up from school, and there's connection there, there's love there, there's just an understanding. I know that these families don't have everything totally in line, but something's working really, really well. And so we thought we'd start by looking at what is it about families, and are there any common denominators that are operating within a family that thrives, and how are those different than a family that's kind of struggling,
right.
Or is quiet, or is there's a level of disconnectedness going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we started. We wanted to see what are these? Are there any principles? Are there any attitudes? Or are there any mindsets that are common amongst these families? So we looked at families across different locations, across different time periods, across different economic statuses, across different religions, across different political spectrums, to just get a broad sense of, is there commonality here?
Right.
And from that, we found some things that ended up kind of popping up in just about every situation and every family and interview that we would have with people. There would be these common themes. And so when we started to identify those, then we started to get excited, because we realized that if we can identify these themes, or we can identify these mindsets that are operating, or we can identify these attitudes or these tools that these families use, then maybe there's hope for people who are struggling, or maybe there's hope for people who aren't having that level of connectedness that they really, that they were really hoping for in their family, and that they worked hard for, and they just can't quite figure out.
Right. Oh, awesome. So what are some of those?
Yeah, we have it boiled down into a framework that we like to use, and I'll give you a link so that everybody that's listening can download and see what I'm talking about. But
that'd be great.
It's an equation, if you will, and then there are some things that you have control over in your life that have a direct impact on the quality of the relationships and the quality of connectedness that you experience with the people in your life. There are obviously a lot of things that are outside of our control. There are a lot of things that you can't control, but there are some things that you can control. We group them into 3 different categories. We group them into mindsets,
okay,
and attitudes, and we group them into tools. And when we think about these mindsets and these attitudes and these tools, then we can start to affect them. So I'd be happy to launch into what they are, or I don't know if you have time for that.
Yeah, I would say definitely at a high level, but sure.
At a high level, that's what's going on, is that there are levers that anybody has control over. There are ways of showing up and choosing to show up. And that's going to have an effect on how you show up for other people, and then how they mirror back to you and how they respond back to you based on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it as far as it. And then, like I said, that equation, what are some of those tools?
Some of those tools, I mean, the most practical ones that we focus on in our coaching clients and in the classes that we teach is to start by noticing what you're noticing.
Okay.
And becoming aware and growing your awareness of where there's discontent in your relationship and where there's a longing for something different, and to be aware of that and to honor that. If you notice that there's some level of discontent in the way that you are experiencing life with your kids, something's happening, with your teenage son, and you notice that, and before reacting or before doing anything about it, becoming familiar with it and honoring that voice inside your head that's letting you know that something's not quite right and you're wanting it to be different. And so one of the things we practice is we practice a lot of awareness. We practice noticing what it is that we're noticing. It strengthens our ability to exercise some control and figure out a solution to our particular unique situation.
Okay.
Every family is different. Every relationship is different. When you're having a conversation, like you and I are having a conversation, and our relationship is different than everyone else out there. But there are some things that are happening between you and me. We're listening to each other, and that's another thing that we talk about and that we focus on with our coaching clients is how do we learn to listen better? And that's part of why we chose Listen Better Now as the name of our business to move forward with that.
Very cool. And I like that the focus is kind of things within our control. I think we lose sight of that and kind of get distracted by focusing on things outside of our control that really have no influence over. But starting with self and what can we control, like our mindset, attitudes, and then the tools we're using to listen better and be more aware. Yeah, that's a great place to start, certainly. I like that. Now, I'm curious, as you all were starting off doing your research, like what criteria or variables were you looking for or identifiers for those thriving families? What does a thriving family look like?
As far as, first of all, they have to identify as I'm not just surviving, or I don't have this level of discontent in my relationship that disqualifies myself. So they have identified in themselves that, I feel like I have connection in my family. I feel like I can have conversations about anything that I want to or need to with the people that I love, whether that's my partner, whether that's my kids. I feel confident in my ability to have those kinds of conversations and make it through. Maybe they're challenging conversations, maybe they're conversations about dreams or conversations about projects that you're working on. And communication is such the backbone of relationships. And so one of the things that we looked at is, how would you rate your conversation, your ability to communicate? Do you feel known? Do you feel valued? Do you feel heard? Do you feel understood? And are you able to how do you feel like you do in delivering that to your kids or to your parents or to your partner or to the people in your life? And if people would, if you feel like you're able to do that, then you feel like you're connected with the people around you.
Okay.
And that is, that's my definition of success. When I have that and I'm able to deliver feelings of being valued and being known and being understood and being heard and seen, when I can do that reliably, then I feel like I'm doing a really great job. And so that's kind of my definition of success as it relates to feeling connected.
Yeah, I love that. It's certainly, I'm glad you really defined that for us, because it can certainly be, it is subjective, but a lot of times people may identify a family as thriving just because, hey, they may be wealthy or something along those lines, but that's superficial, and it's not necessarily a sign.
it doesn't take very long to talk with people, and they realize that, I can take my family on these amazing vacations, but I come back and we still feel empty.
Right.
Like, you know what, now I got to start planning for the next one. I need, we got to, it's got to be bigger and better. It's got to be something, otherwise my wife and kids are going to feel disappointed, or I'm going to be disappointed. And before you know it, you start expecting that vacation is going to solve a problem for you, or just doing this, if I just get this project done, then that's going to solve my problem. And that to me is a sign. And whenever I hear people talking about, in those ways, that's a sign to me that they're experiencing some discontentment in the way that they are experiencing everyday life with their families. And what we want to do is address first, how can you be connected right here, right now, so that you're building a dream with your family, so that when you go on these vacations, you come back. I mean, you go on them and you're like, you just feel you're having such a good time together. You're like,
right.
You're watching your kids thrive and try new things and grow, and you're watching, your relationship with them, like they're growing in their character and who they are. And it's just like, it feels so good. And it wouldn't make a difference if you were at Disney or if you were stuck at home at COVID. Like, you are working on that with them, and you are co-creating life with your family. And that feeling is what we define as success, or a family that's thriving. That's how I define success. Success.
Awesome. Now, as far as your coaching program, can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, we have different solutions for people in different places in their life. I think the most popular option that we have is it's a 6-week program where we really grow in our ability to notice what we're noticing. We go deep into the 3 mindsets, the 3 connected mindsets, and the 9 attitudes that, when we turn toward more of the time, are just it's the simplest way to experience connection with the people that are in your life. And we do that without having to have ridiculously hard conversations or spend months in therapy. It's by noticing and finding the good that's already happening in your life and in your relationships. And by amplifying that, we're able to solve problems a lot quicker, and in a way that doesn't feel uncomfortable, and in a way that you feel aligned with your partner and with your family, and like you're headed in the same direction, and you're not becoming somebody that you're not.
Right.
That's one of the things. Everybody has something valuable to offer to this world, and it's when we try to be someone that we're not, or to fit into some role that we think somebody else has for us, that we start losing our way. And that's why, the personal responsibility aspect of this makes such sense to people. I know that if I'm in line with who I really am, the people around me that love me and that I love are going to value me, because they're good people, and I know and believe the best about them too. And so that's what we do in our 6-week program. We have year-long coaching, and we have a 30-day self-study program, but our most popular program is the 6 weeks of connectedness coaching.
And is that in person or virtual, or?
It's one-on-one. We can work in person. We go through a series of calls. We meet together once a week, and there are homework assignments.
Okay.
To work through and kind of unpack on your own with your family, if you so choose. But largely because this is about becoming the person you need to be to have the family that you've always wanted, you have to do the work. And when you take responsibility, and you think about things, and you're willing to risk, you're willing to be vulnerable, you're willing to look for ways to be gracious and turn toward thankfulness and gratitude, you can really have an outstanding effect on your relationships in a really, really short amount of time.
Oh, fantastic. So you mentioned COVID earlier, and yes, something that the pandemic has impacted the entire world, and certainly families. What have you observed as far as the impact it's had on families?
And it's just been, it's wild, isn't it? I couldn't have imagined this 7 or 8 and 9 months ago. The just total change in the way that families operate. For a while, everybody, had to stop whatever it was that they were doing, and so for some families, that created a lot of space for them to come face to face with the realities of their family, whether things were working really well or whether things, there were some areas for improvement or just stuff was not working at all. They're face to face with that pretty much nonstop. And so we had people, everybody chose to engage with their day or with this time. Everybody chooses to do how they see best fit. And so some people, this was a really tough time. Others, this was an opportunity to connect, and they've never been closer to their families. We have families who've started businesses and launched new projects as a result of having additional space in their life to create together. And then other people who have, I hear other stories of people who decided to throw in the towel and call it quits on their marriage because it just wasn't working out. And it's affected all of us, and there's no way around that. But it was time and is time and space for us to kind of think and get real with ourselves about, am I still heading in the same direction that I was when my kids were born? And what's changed? And am I in the place that I want to be, or do I need to change some things in my relationship, in my family, the way that I'm showing up? There are a lot of people who, career changes, and it's a lot of tumultuous time for a lot of families. But at the same time, when you have a tribe around you and you have relationships around you that are thriving and that are really working well, it's been such an opportunity for people to recreate themselves or to explore deeper than they ever have before. Because I never would have taken time off to slow down and to reassess and to rethink some of the major things in my life had COVID not hit.
Right.
So for my family, it's been a tremendous success story. And just I have a half a dozen, just amazing things that have happened that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And so, for me, it was good. How about for you? How's this affected your home life for you?
Oh, it's been pretty much the same as far as my grandmother's always used a phrase, something that appears bad on the surface, but actually ends up being a blessing in disguise. Mm-hmm. And I would say this has been that blessing in disguise for me, just spending a lot more time with my family. I have a daughter. She's only 16 months now. So being able to be with her all day, every day, and with my wife. And that's just been such a blessing. And it allowed me to slow down. I was prior to COVID, I was just always so busy and had my schedule packed and just like being busy. But COVID stopped all of that. And then just being able to relax and enjoy time with family and not have anywhere to be, not have any deadlines or anything like that has truly been a blessing. And I actually finished up a book during the quarantine. So making the most of it.
How many books have you written now, Derek?
I'm on my third book. I just published my third book. But that third one wouldn't have happened without COVID because I would have been too busy doing other stuff. So certainly about making the most of a situation, and even with forced change, as you mentioned, it can allow you to recreate yourself. And really, for me, the biggest thing I took away from all of this experience is really just taking that time to reanalyze my life and my family and realize what's important, what's most important. And that's probably what I value the most. Definitely prioritizing, because it's easy to lose sight of what your priorities are, getting caught up with career and things like that.
Oh, very much. I'm never going back to pre-COVID days. There's no way any of us could, but I'm grateful and thankful for the lessons that I've learned along the way too.
Yeah,
Your grandmother's a wise woman. It's a blessing in disguise.
Absolutely. Certainly. Now, also with, you mentioned with your company, you say we, is it you and your wife or just you and your staff? I'm just curious.
My dad.
Oh, you and your dad? Oh,
yeah.
Awesome.
So and this maybe a testament to the power of relationships. I'm a millennial and he's a baby boomer, and we have different political beliefs and different religious beliefs, but we are business partners, equal business partners in this project. And it's it can show you that people from any different kind of background, if they show up, they believe the best about each other, and they turn toward the attitudes and the mindsets, and they just listen to each other, they really can create just about anything they can dream up.
Yeah.
So I have the blessing of getting to work with my father.
Wow, that's great.
Through times of connection and times of deep disconnection where we didn't see eye to eye on anything, and we couldn't really even make it through a conversation. But as a result of a lot of his wisdom and hard efforts on both of our parts, we showed up and we thought we'd give something a shot.
Yeah.
And, it's been a lot of fun to work with them.
Wow. Now y'all are making a big difference in serving families. Wow. That's fantastic. And it comes back to just how important that communication is. And as you mentioned, just that personal responsibility, showing up and giving it your best.
Yep.
Definitely.
Believing that one way or another, things are going to work out, and that everybody's point of view, whether you agree with it or not, is valid.
Right. Yeah.
It's valid to them.
Exactly. Perception is reality. So that's their perception. Yeah.
It's true. I may not understand it. I may not agree with it, but
right.
Tell me, and I will do my best I will be with you, and I will listen to what you have to say. When you show up with that, anything's possible.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, earlier you mentioned about like families being disconnected and just that discontentment. How do you see that, I guess, illustrate in terms of behavior from teens when their family is just disconnected and they just have that discontentment in their family?
The number one thing that I think all of us are looking for most of the time, and especially as a teenager, is we're looking for connection and people to understand us. How many times I don't know what your life was like as a teenager, but how many times did I feel like my parents just don't understand me? Like they just don't get it. And you felt isolated, you felt alone, you felt like, what, like this just, I can't, how do I make sense of this life when my parents just don't get me? They don't get anything.
Right.
And so, that's the number one way that it manifests. It manifests in other ways where you think and you pretend as a teenager, you pretend to do the right things for your parents. And, behind the scenes, you're not honoring what you said you were going to do, or you're saying you're going to do one thing and then living a different way behind their backs. There's another way that it manifests itself. It can manifest itself in, not being able to have a conversation, like from total disconnection to pretending to be someone you're not, to actually having really awesome relationships with your parents, where you feel like your parents listen to you, and you feel like your kids are listening to you, and you feel like you're able to talk with them in a way that they understand. They may not agree with, but that they understand. And if you as a parent are able to show up and demonstrate that to your kid, you give them such a huge advantage in life.
Big time.
It's an unreal advantage to be able to work through challenges with people that you love without blowing life up, or having to struggle through the uncomfortable nature of feeling alone. When you can show up and you give that to your kids, that's just one of the biggest blessings that you can give to your kids.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I like what you mentioned earlier about noticing what you're noticing. I think that concept is so important and often overlooked, where just because you see something doesn't necessarily mean you notice it or you're really processing what's going on. Can you elaborate more on that concept and just how parents can notice things going on in their lives and their teens' lives?
Yeah. I mean, we are built like we have these minds that are just unbelievable. Like they're processing like billions and billions of bytes per second. And we oftentimes, because it's just like, it's practical, we have to kind of turn on this autopilot. We all
Right.
kind of figure out how we're going to make it through this life. And so we create routines and we, habits, and we engage in a style of conversation. We build these habits that can sometimes serve us well and sometimes don't serve us well. But the one thing that you can do that makes a huge difference is is take time to notice what you're noticing. And so if you notice and you sense that your kid is feeling a little bit off, or there's your partner gave you a short comment back to you and it something felt off or whatever, take a minute and notice what you're noticing before you react. And when you take that time to kind of notice what you're noticing, you create some space in your own mental ability to, instead of react, you can think about things and then come up with a different plan. And living reactively is it's the name of the game in 2019. We're reacting. And I'm hoping that there's a collective awakening of sorts where we realize that we don't have to react, that we can take a pause, we can take a breath before we respond to somebody who may have said an unkind word,
Right.
and think about how we want to show up. And so, yeah, it's mindfulness in practice. It's being present and saying, you know what, I don't want to just I don't want to go through my pre-programmed habits. Show up, and you wake up in the morning, and before I know it, I'm standing in front of a coffee maker, and before I know it, I'm brushing my teeth, and you're just like you're on autopilot.
Right.
When you start to notice what you're noticing, then you start to take back some of the control that you have, and the ability to affect change in your family, and in your relationships, and the way you show up. It's such a practical skill. It's one of the most practical skills that you can practice on a daily basis.
Yeah, that is really, really great. And I like that you pointed out with the brain is such a fascinating just organism where it just habits and routines, all those things, just the brain's way of doing things efficiently. And once you're on autopilot like that, you can just miss so much, and you're going through life without even really processing or thinking. It's just like you're a robot, autopilot. But yeah, about noticing what you're noticing, like you say, you're taking back some of that control, and you're telling your brain, hey, I don't need to do this so efficiently that I'm missing out on things.
Right.
I want to take the time to process this, so I'll take back this task.
It comes in especially useful when you're practicing your listening. And it's so often, I mean, you right now you're interviewing me, so I'm doing most of the talking, but a lot of times in relationships, it's your ability to show up and be present with someone as they are unpacking a story, or they're telling something, or they're sharing something, is like one of those skills. And it is certainly, you can tell when somebody's paying attention to you, and you can also tell when they're not paying attention to you.
Right.
And when you can show up, when you practice noticing what you're noticing, you're able to show up in conversations with people and listen better. You can be a better listener. You can show up for them, for other people. And when they need some attention, or they have something that they're trying to say, but they're unsure if they're going to say it or how they're going to say it or whatever, when you can create that space for them, then you give them the opportunity to open up. And when somebody feels comfortable opening up to you, and they feel listened to, and they feel like they're valued, like all of a sudden you've given them, a gift of life. You've given them a gift of being listened to, of being seen as a human, as a valid, valued person. And that's magic. When we can do that for other people, it's just magic. It makes a huge difference in the way that people feel, and hopefully the way that this society kind of continues to develop.
Yeah, certainly. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But yeah, we all as humans, we have a need to feel valued and understood. And a big part of that is having others to listen and care and be empathetic, and I kind of understand where we're coming from. And certainly by me hosting this podcast, doing interviews, that's helped with my active listening skills. I've been more really kind of develop that skill more.
I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing. It's so important, Derek. As we were saying earlier, like the teenage years are just, they're tough years, and they can, they can also be some of the best years. And so parents who are active, who are wanting to grow their families and watch their kids grow into the best versions of themselves, like you are facilitating just some amazing growth for people. So thank you for your service and your work in this area. It means a world to me and to the world that you're doing this. So thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And since becoming a father, I've just become a student of parenting and learning and trying to be the best parent that I can be. And that's why when I saw what you were doing, just instantly, this is great. I have to have him on the podcast just because, you're doing the same thing. So
I love seeing pictures of her on social media, and you're killing it, dude. Keep up the great work, brother.
I appreciate it. Well, Jeremy, you've given us a lot of great strategy tools and resources that certainly the parents can start incorporating immediately in their family, and will help for their families to thrive even more. I really love that. Jeremy, how can any listeners get in contact with you?
Yeah, the best way is just go visit listenbetternow.com. And then you can reach out if there's some training material on there that likely be helpful.
Okay.
Some resources, and then if you want to reach out and schedule a coaching consultation, we're happy to walk you through what that might look like. But avail yourself of the free resources that are available on the site, and see if you can't see a pathway forward for yourself as you look at the framework, and as you realize you have control over the way that your relationships end up being tomorrow and end up being 6 months from now and a year from now. You can have an effect on the way that your kids grow up. You can have an effect on your marriage. You can have effect on your friendships. It is not fixed. It is not anything that, maybe you were driving down the highway and you thought things were going one way and they ended up not being that way. You can change. You have control to change the course of where you're heading. It's not too late. It's not all for nothing. It's not they messed up so bad that nothing is salvageable, or it's not I messed up so bad nothing is salvageable. You can take responsibility, and you can have a dramatic effect on the way that you show up, so you can have the kinds of relationships that you've always wanted.
Wow. Fantastic closing advice. I really appreciate it. And thanks again, Jeremy, and certainly wishing you the best, and look for opportunities for us to collaborate and definitely support your journey. I know you're going to continue making great impacts with your dad on just families and helping get more connected. So thanks again.
Absolute pleasure, Derek. Thank you.
You've been listening to Mentor Select. Mentor Select. Parenting teens to be successful adults. Hosted by Derek Phillips. Raising teenagers is hard. Understatement of the century. We get it. That's why Derek interviews leading experts that work with teens, educators, counselors, mentors, and authors to give you practical tips, strategies, and resources that you can incorporate immediately to better connect and understand your teen. That's why we do the show. Be sure to share Mentor Select with other parents of teens. Follow us on social media at Mentor Select to stay up to date on the latest tips, strategies, and resources for parenting teens. Send your questions and comments to derek@mentorselect.com. Tune in every Wednesday for new episodes. Till next time, this is Mentor Select.